561 equipment arrived, power cut. Lin Fan had no idea about the change in Feng Jixiang's mentality. His thoughts moved slightly. In the next moment, a giant machine several meters tall appeared in the garden. At the same time, a thick stack of documents appeared on the coffee table. This was the controllable nuclear fusion equipment, as well as manuals, blueprints, and so on. Although it was the first time he saw these things, Lin Fan knew every single component and function of this machine. He sized it up for a while, then sat on the sofa and leisurely drank a few cups of spirit tea. He also played with his phone for a while. Only then did she call Feng Jixiang. After the ringtone rang 3 times, the call was connected. Just as Lin Fan was about to say something, a commotion sounded from inside. "Director Feng, why is it so noisy over there?" he asked. "Oh, I'm at the airport. I'm going to Jingbei for a meeting. Professor Lin, is there anything you need?" Lin Fan nodded. "The controllable nuclear fusion equipment has arrived at Coiling Dragon Villa. Since you're going to Jingbei for a meeting, you can come back next time." Feng Jixiang's phone fell to the ground. Then he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Driver, driver, make a turn. I'm not taking the plane anymore. I want to go to Coiling Dragon Villa." Then Feng Jixiang put the phone to his ear and said, "I'll come over now. Professor Lin, please wait for me." After saying that, he hurriedly hung up the phone. Lin Fan heard the busy tone on his phone and chuckled. Feng Jixiang walked down anxiously. Then he asked in an extremely excited voice, "Professor Lin, this is..." Lin Fan nodded and said, "This is the controllable nuclear fusion device. I call it Ordinary One." Good name," Feng Jixiang shouted excitedly. As he spoke, he pressed his entire body against the device, as if he wanted to give it a big hug. At this moment, 3 army helicopters approached from afar and slowly landed. The leader of the soldiers saluted Feng Jixiang and Lin Fan. Then he ordered a dozen soldiers to surround the controllable nuclear fusion equipment, as well as the gates and blind spots of the Coiling Dragon Villa. Lin Fan could not help but ask curiously, "Director Feng, why did you bring so many people here?" "We just mentioned controllable nuclear fusion on the phone," Feng Jixiang said seriously. "If someone was eavesdropping, there'd be a certain risk." Lin Fan opened his mouth. He wanted to say that no one in this world could eavesdrop on his phone. However, he looked at Feng Jixiang's serious expression. He swallowed his words back into his heart. Forget it, forget it. He could do whatever he wanted. Lin Fan shook his head and continued playing with his phone. Not long after, 2 green trucks and several large cranes drove into Coiling Dragon Villa. After a series of careful maneuvering, the controllable nuclear fusion device finally landed smoothly on the truck. Seeing this, Feng Jixiang could not help but nod his head. He turned to Lin Fan and said, "Professor Lin, let's go." Lin Fan was stunned. "Leave, where are we going?" Feng Jixiang said, "Of course, we'll test the functions of Ordinary One. Although I've already asked a group of experts to wait at Ordinary Technology Company, we still don't know how to operate it." Hence, Lin Fan drove the Cullinan to the outskirts of the city, where Ordinary Technology Company was. At that moment, a large group of white-haired elders wearing glasses were standing at the entrance. They were the experts that Feng Jixiang had mentioned. "Hello, Department Director Feng," the experts said in unison. Feng Jixiang nodded. Then he introduced them to Professor Lin Fan. Everyone's figures became solemn. Who in the entire academic world had not heard of Lin Fan's name? He was a great existence who had won 4 Nobel Prizes at the same time. "Hello, Professor Lin." Lin Fan nodded, "Hello." Under Feng Jixiang and Lin Fan's instructions, the equipment was finally placed in the workshop in the middle. Finally, a bald expert could not help but ask, "Professor Lin, what kind of equipment is this?" Even though Feng Jixiang had informed them to come over, he did not say what they were here for. Obviously, this was also to prevent the phone from being tapped or the news from being leaked. Lin Fan said, "Oh, this Ordinary One." Lin Fan thought about it and felt that no one had heard of the name Ordinary One. "It's a controllable nuclear fusion device." His answer was very dull. However, It sounded like a huge thunder in everyone's ears, causing the entire workshop to suddenly fall silent. A controllable nuclear fusion device. The thing that only existed in legends. Everyone should know the rules, Feng Jixiang said solemnly. I won't say much. Later, everyone must sign a confidentiality agreement. Everyone nodded. Then Feng Jixiang said in a very nervous and anxious tone, Professor Lin, what should we do next? Lin Fan said, have you prepared the deuterated water? It's ready, Feng Jixiang said. Before building ordinary technology, Lin Fan had told him that he would be able to use controllable nuclear fusion technology. Therefore, Feng Jixiang had someone refine tritium early on. The purpose was to test the controllable nuclear fusion faster. Lin Fan nodded. Although our factory is big, the power consumption is too low. Even the smallest amount of energy is enough to burn all the electrical equipment. How about this? Contact the electricity department and ask Lake District and Summer District to cut off electricity for 2 hours. Feng Jixiang responded like a soldier, all right. Then he quickly made a call. Leader Jiao, hello, I have an urgent matter here, I need your cooperation. Not long after Feng Jixiang hung up, his phone vibrated slightly. Professor Lin, Lake District and Summer District is having a power cut, Feng Jixiang said. Lin Fan pointed at the entrance not far away and said, pour a ton of deuterium here. Under Feng Jixiang's command, someone quickly injected the tritium into it. Lin Fan said, all right, everything is ready, I will start. Hence, under the watchful eyes of Feng Jixiang and the experts, Lin Fan fiddled with many complicated buttons on the dashboard. Activate. After saying that, he pressed the last red button. 562 success, creating a sun. Ordinary 1 let out a soft sound. 2 million megavolts. 5 million megavolts. 10 million megavolts. 30 million megavolts. When the experts saw these numbers, their eyes widened in disbelief. Someone could not help but exclaim, how is this possible? The crowd did not look at him with blame or surprise. They also had the same shock and doubt. One had to know. A medium-sized city would only consume 30 to 50 million megavolts of electricity every day. Now it could generate 30 million megavolts of electricity with just 1 ton of hydrogen. Deuterated water was a solution that could be easily extracted from seawater. Seawater occupied more than 70% of the Earth's surface area. Therefore, the supply of it was inexhaustible. It could generate so much electricity. If it was true, then the entire world would no longer have to worry about energy. At this moment, Feng Jixiang's phone suddenly rang. Feng Jixiang wanted to reject. However, when he saw that it was Jiao Yang, he still picked up. The power supply was turned off, but there was electricity. Ordinary 1's test was a success. It really generated 30 million megavolts of electricity. Good, great, Feng Jixiang exclaimed excitedly, ha ha ha. After a while, he seemed to realize that the call had not been hung up. He quickly said, Leader Jiao, you just need to maintain the current state. Jiao Yang was still at a loss, so he could only reply, all right. Then the entire workshop was filled with excited exclamations. Too unbelievable. Heavens! A miracle! I actually witnessed it with my own eyes. It's a success, the controllable nuclear fusion is a success. When some people called out, hot tears even flowed out of the corners of their eyes. They were experts in controllable nuclear fusion and had been working hard for this technology for most of their lives. They were the group of people who hoped that this technology could be realized as soon as possible. Now it had finally succeeded. Professor Lin, thank you. Thank you. Everyone bowed to Lin Fan and thanked him. Lin Fan suddenly received such big bows from elders many years his senior. He scratched the back of his head in embarrassment and said, this is just a small matter, you don't have to do this. Oh right, these are the manuals, blueprints, and principles of Ordinary 1. As he spoke, Lin Fan handed over a stack of documents. Feng Jixiang took the information and bowed 90 degrees to Lin Fan. Professor Lin, thank you. I know that what you've done is not something that can be expressed with just thanks. However, I can't find any other way for the time being. After saying that, he bowed toward Lin Fan once more. Also, Professor Lin, don't worry, this is your technology and patent. When people use it, they'll pay for it. Clearly, this was for Lin Fan's benefit. This kind of technology would undoubtedly set off a huge wave in the energy field. Without a doubt, the wind power, fire power, and even the water power stations would pale in comparison to ordinary one. He could foresee that in the future, Hua Nation and even most of the world would be using controllable nuclear fusion electricity. There would definitely be a bountiful profit from this. All right, said Lin Fan. He no longer cared about money. It was just a few more zeros or a few fewer zeros. After a pause, he said, all right, you guys can study it slowly, I'll leave first. After saying that, he did not stay any longer and walked straight out. For the next few days, Lin Fan stayed in the Coiling Dragon Villa to rest quietly. According to past experience, every time he received a reward, many people would come to congratulate him and chat with him. It was very troublesome. Lin Fan hated trouble. Lin Fan rested quietly, but the entire world was in a commotion because of him. The success of controllable nuclear fusion was officially announced. On Weibo. Don't forget, controlled nuclear fusion. Am I seeing things? Furthermore, it was invented by God Lin Fan. Hero, I thought it was a work of fiction. I didn't expect it to turn into reality so quickly. Professor Lin is awesome. Li Bai, when my mentor saw this news, he cried on the spot. Waiter, it wasn't easy for me to accept the fact that God Lin Fan solved Zhou's conjecture, the twin prime number conjecture, and other mathematical problems. He even invented the earthquake prediction device. It wasn't easy for me to accept that God Lin Fan invented the earthquake prediction device. In the end, he invented the super battery. It wasn't easy for me to accept that God Lin Fan invented the super battery. In the end, he invented the carbon-based photolithographic machine. It wasn't easy for me to accept that God Lin Fan invented the carbon-based photolithographic machine. In the end, he invented the human islet recovery drug. I finally accepted that God Lin Fan invented the human islet recovery drug, and now he invented the controllable nuclear fusion device. Finally, I just want to say that God Lin Fan is awesome. Sinking, didn't Lin Fan just win 4 Nobel Prizes? What kind of big event is this? Confused, may I ask, what is controllable nuclear fusion? Gudmore, this world is constantly reminding me that I came to the human world to make up the numbers. I know, why is the difference between people so big? Firmament, it seems that there are still people who don't know what controllable nuclear fusion is. Let me give a simple explanation. Controlled nuclear fusion is the process of fusing 2 lighter nuclei into a heavier nucleus and releasing energy. For example, the sun is able to emit sunlight because it's undergoing controllable nuclear fusion. Therefore, controllable nuclear fusion is also known as the little sun. In addition, the main material used in this controllable nuclear fusion was extracted from seawater. It can be said that there's an endless supply. Some people said that the main problem that has been plaguing human development is the problem of energy. And now, our energy problem can be said to have been fundamentally solved. Flowers blossoms, so you're saying that God Lin Fan created the sun. Stone Golem F*CK awesome. Disheartened F*CK awesome. Ow F*CK awesome. 563 Deathmatch, good friends. The matter on the internet continued to ferment, and it was at the top of the trending list for several days. Lin Fan did not pay any attention to this. Today, Lin Fan, who had nothing to do, took a first-class flight to Madu. In order to prevent Qin Yuxuan from going on a business trip, Lin Fan called her in advance. When Lin Fan arrived at the Global Financial Tower, the employees of Fan Yu Investment Company were all very busy. However, it seemed a little strange that they were so busy today. That was because Lin Fan noticed that many employees would look up at the door from time to time. Their faces were filled with anticipation. At this moment, the beautiful receptionist raised her head with an expectant gaze, just like the other employees. In the next moment, she quickly stood up and respectfully said, "Hello, Mr. Lin. Lin Fan nodded his head. Is Yuxuan here? Yes, she's in the office now, the receptionist said. As she spoke, she was about to walk out of the front desk and lead the way. Lin Fan waved his hand. No need, I can go over myself. After all, he had been to Fan Yu Investment Company many times. In fact, Lin Fan had even chosen this office when he first came over. He was very familiar with the place. Please come in, Qin Yuxuan's crisp voice came from inside. Lin Fan pushed open the door. Qin Yuxuan continued to approve another document before raising her head. When she saw that it was Lin Fan, her pretty face was filled with smiles. She said, "What do you want to drink?" "Green tea," Lin Fan said. "All right," Qin Yuxuan replied. Usually, Qin Yuxuan's coffee and tea would be served by her secretary. However, she personally brewed tea for Lin Fan. After a while, a faint fragrance filled the entire office. Lin Fan took a sip and asked, "Have you been busy recently?" Qin Yuxuan said, "I am busy, but I like this feeling. It is fulfilling and satisfying." Lin Fan said, "It's good to be fulfilled, but you still need to rest." If it was someone else who said this, Qin Yuxuan would definitely not care. She might even think that the other party was long-winded. However, when Lin Fan said it, it made her heart feel sweet. "All right," Qin Yuxuan said with a smile. Lin Fan took another sip of tea and asked, "By the way, I see that the employees outside seem to be waiting for someone." Initially, he thought that Qin Yuxuan had informed them that he was coming, which was why the employees were waiting. However, judging from the beautiful receptionist's reaction, it did not seem to be the case. Qin Yuxuan was about to answer. Suddenly, a passionate voice sounded outside. "She's so beautiful. She's even more beautiful than on TV. Don't push. Let me take a photo too. Can I have your autograph? I want an autographed photo." Qin Yuxuan smiled. "She should be here. Come, let's go out and take a look. You know her." "No hurry." Lin Fan nodded his head in confusion. The door opened. The two of them walked forward shoulder to shoulder. The crowded employees quickly made way for the two of them. In the next moment, a voluptuous figure with exquisite facial features appeared in their field of vision. It was Ling Ru. When Lin Fan saw her, he was stunned. Lin Fan remembered that the last time he saw Ling Ru was when she won the Golden Melody Awards. Unexpectedly, the next time they met was at Fan Yu Investment Company. His two women were meeting. Was this considered a battlefield? When Ling Ru saw Lin Fan, she was stunned. Obviously, she did not expect to see Lin Fan. Only Qin Yuxuan was very calm. She smiled and said, "Ling Ru, welcome to Fan Yu Investment. I believe that because of your endorsement, our Fan Yu investment will be known by more people." As she spoke, she stretched out her slender hand. Ling Ru was stunned for a moment before she reached out her hand and said, "Thank you." Qin Yuxuan introduced, "This is the real boss of our company, Lin Fan." Under the gaze of Qin Yuxuan, Ling Ru and Lin Fan reached out their hands to shake hands. Qin Yuxuan smiled, "I'm a fan. Come, let's go to my office first. How about that?" "All right," Ling Ru looked at Lin Fan and said. Qin Yuxuan, Ling Ru, and Lin Fan slowly walked into the office while surrounded by the employees. Qin Yuxuan locked the door. "Ling Ru, I just brewed this tea. Why don't you come and have a taste?" Ling Ru took a sip. It tasted sweet and refreshing. This was spirit tea. Qin Yuxuan said, "Ling Ru, I like your song Galaxy the most. It's so good, whether it's the lyrics or the tune, everything is perfect. There was a period of time where I would listen to it a few times every day." Ling Ru looked at Lin Fan and stuttered, "Oh, is that so?" Qin Yuxuan said, "Of course. Actually, I also saw the publicity for your first concert, but I was too busy at that time, so I could not make it." Lin Fan picked up the teacup and drank a mouthful of tea. He almost choked. What if Qin Yuxuan had gone to the concert? At that time, Lin Fan had called Huang Ling, Qiu Ziqian, Xia Bing, Xia Zhu, Han Tian, Hu Tian, and the rest over. If they suddenly met, it would be a deathmatch. Qin Yuxuan patted Lin Fan's back gently and asked, "Are you all right? Drink slowly. No one's gonna snatch it from you." Lin Fan nodded, "All right, all right." Qin Yuxuan said to Ling Ru, Ling Ru, I'm actually from Jiang province. My hometown is in Qing City, which is very close to Jiangbei. Because I didn't go to your concert, I regretted it for a long time. By the way, who's the lyricist and composer for Galaxy? That person must be very talented, right? Do they have any other songs? Ling Ru looked at Lin Fan again and said, he's really talented. Unfortunately, there's only one song by him for now. Qin Yuxuan sighed and said, that's a pity. The two of them held hands and chatted and laughed. That appearance, it was like they were friends who had known each other for many years. They chatted for more than an hour. If they were thirsty, they would drink some spirit tea and immediately feel refreshed. Therefore, they did not feel tired at all. At this moment, Qin Yuxuan said, it's getting late. I've already made a reservation at Li Family Cuisine. Let's go eat together first. Ling Ru was a little hesitant. Isn't it too troublesome? What trouble? Qin Yuxuan smiled. The food served at Li Family Cuisine is very delicious. Moreover, you don't have to worry about being disturbed by others. I specially booked a private room. Then Qin Yuxuan did not wait for Ling Ru to say anything more. She held her hand and walked out. Seeing this, Lin Fan could only follow behind silently. 564 mission completed. Good luck, 1. Li Family Cuisine was a well-known luxurious restaurant in Madu. Whether it was the dishes, the decor, or the style, they were all far superior to ordinary restaurants. Therefore, there were many guests every day. After Qin Yuxuan announced her name, the waiter quickly brought the three of them to a luxurious private room on the third floor. It was luxurious and grand. One could see the empty street outside when one looked up. Even so, it still could not conceal the low atmosphere in the private room. It was Qin Yuxuan who spoke first, making the atmosphere livelier. Ling Ru, you can try Jingbei smoked meat later. Don't worry, it's not greasy at all. There's also shark fin and the sauce that comes with it is super delicious. After listening to Qin Yuxuan's description, Ling Ru swallowed her saliva as if she had already seen these delicacies. Soon delicious dishes were served. Qin Yuxuan directly picked up a piece of Jingbei smoked meat and placed it into Qin Yuxuan's bowl. She said, Ling Ru, try it quickly. All right, Ling Ru replied. The smoked meat melted in her mouth. It was very soft and fragrant. It's delicious, Ling Ru praised sincerely. Right, Qin Yuxuan smiled and said, try this. The atmosphere in the private room became more and more lively as the delicacies entered their stomachs. The two women started chatting and laughing again. Lin Fan was the only one who had been left hanging. Lin Fan was very happy about this. He did not want to see them battle it out. The meal lasted until 8 o'clock in the evening. Everyone's stomachs were bulging. At this moment, Qin Yuxuan said, Ling Ru, let's go to my house. Before Ling Ru could reply, she held her hand and walked back. In the living room that was nearly 100 square meters, one could see the extremely spacious balcony, the bright French windows, and the rolling river view in the distance. It was as if one were standing between heaven and earth. It was immense enjoyment. Ling Ru, why are you standing there? Qin Yuxuan asked with a smile. Sit down. All right, Ling Ru replied. What do you want to drink? Qin Yuxuan asked. Anything's fine as long as it's chilled, Ling Ru said. All right. The three of them sat on the sofa and were silent for a moment. The atmosphere at the scene became dull again. Ling Ru kept scratching her fingers. Lin Fan looked at the sky and the ground as if there was something interesting going on. Only Qin Yuxuan had a smile on her face. Finally, Qin Yuxuan smiled and said, I have a rough idea of Ling Ru's situation. Lin Fan, do you have anything else to add to our sister's story? The air. At that moment it seemed to have frozen. Sister. Qin Yuxuan knew. In fact, when Ling Ru appeared at the company, Lin Fan had already expected this to happen. However, when it really happened, his heart could not help but beat faster. After a while, Lin Fan said awkwardly, actually, I was the one who wrote the lyrics and composition for Galaxy. Qin Yuxuan seemed to have expected this and was not too surprised. She nodded and said, no wonder it sounds so good. Ling Ru's concert was also arranged by me. No wonder it's so grand. After that, I even accompanied her to the Golden Melody Awards. This kind of grand prize is deserved. After Qin Yuxuan finished speaking, she held onto Ling Ru's slender hand once more. At the same time, she also held onto Lin Fan's hand. Then the three hands were placed together. Actually, I already knew. Where are my other sisters? When can we meet? I'll call them now, Lin Fan said. As he spoke, he took out his phone. Silly girl, why are you calling them? Qin Yuxuan asked. Most of them are from Jiangbei, right? If I want to see them, I'll find an opportunity to do so. I'll go to Jiangbei to see them. Lin Fan nodded. All right. Then Qin Yuxuan looked at Ling Ru and said with a smile, Ling Ru, we'll be good sisters from now on. Yes, yes, Ling Ru nodded vigorously. Perhaps it was because the window was not open. The air in the living room began to heat up. The dark clouds covered the sky and the heavy rain hit the floor-to-ceiling windows, but it did not have much effect. For the next few days, Lin Fan accompanied Qin Yuxuan and Ling Ru either shopping or going to the amusement park. It was very enjoyable. However, happy days were always very short. After rejecting several jobs, Ling Ru was finally forced to go back to work. Qin Yuxuan also had many things to deal with. Therefore, Lin Fan stayed in Madu for 4 days before returning to Jiangbei. Lin Fan sat on the soft sofa and casually scrolled through his phone for a while. He realized that his popularity was still high. Therefore, he temporarily gave up on his plan to go to school tomorrow. In the blink of an eye, another 4 days passed. It was Friday. The setting sun in the distance dyed the sky red, making it bright and brilliant. Lin Fan drove Lin Xiaoyao and his Cullinan on the straight highway toward Qing City. When they were at home, they did not think much of it. However, once they were far away, they would miss it dearly. Lin Xiaoyao was like that even though she had just gone to Sweden with her parents not long ago. Lin Fan and Lin Xiaoyao arrived at Qing City before the sun set. 565 mission completed. Good luck, too. Dad, Mom, we're back, Lin Xiaoyao shouted before she even walked into the house. She looked at the large table of dishes. Braised pork ribs, glutinous rice fish, shredded potatoes, green beans, scrambled eggs with tomatoes, loofah soup. Wow, they're all my favorite foods. Great. As she spoke, she took a piece of pork rib from the bowl and put it into her mouth. Delicious. Dai Weixu scolded, you're already in university but you're still using your hands to eat. Mom, it's all because your cooking skills are too good, I can't help it, Lin Xiaoyao said with a smile. As soon as she finished speaking, she took another piece of pork rib and stuffed it into her mouth. Your culinary skills are top-notch. Dai Weixu smiled and shook her head. Go wash your hands and eat. All right, Lin Xiaoyao said. Lil Fan, do you want some? Lin Tao asked. Why are you letting Lil Fan drink? He's a professor, he can't drink, Dai Weixu blamed her husband. Oh right, said Lin Tao. Lin Fan smiled. Dad, Mom, professors can drink, it's fine. Is that so? Lin Tao said hesitantly. Yes, Lin Fan said. As he spoke, he poured himself a glass of wine. Dad, cheers. All right, cheers. After a glass of wine, Lin Tao asked, I heard that you created a son, won't it be very hot in the future? Oh, so that's how it is, Lin Tao nodded. The night gradually deepened. Lin Fan lay on the big bed that had just been basked in the sun. His face was filled with a blissful smile. In the blink of an eye, it was the second day. When the sun rose and the sky was dyed red, Lin Fan opened his eyes. He glanced at his phone out of habit. Notice from Merchant Bank, 36,892,000 yuan was deposited into your account. Then he placed his attention on the sign-in system. Sign in. Ding, congratulations, you've received 10 million yuan. Lin Fan pursed his lips and threw his phone to the side, then he slowly got up. After washing up, he went to the breakfast stall with Lin Xiaoyao and ordered a bowl of wontons. Lin Xiaoyao said the wontons at home are the most delicious, the ones from Jiangbei don't taste right. Lin Fan said, eat more, that way your face will be rounder and it'll feel nicer to pinch. As he spoke, Lin Fan raised his hand and pinched Lin Xiaoyao's cheek. Your face is too thin. Brother, Lin Xiaoyao rebuked. After breakfast, Lin Xiaoyao chose to go home to catch up on her sleep. Lin Fan strolled around the streets. Familiar buildings and familiar streets, everything was so beautiful. At this moment, the phone in his pocket vibrated slightly. Lin Fan opened it and saw that it was a WeChat message from Xia Bing and Xia Zhu. Xia Bing, Professor Lin, we just received the International Computer Innovation Award, Certificate, JPG. Xia Zhu, Professor Lin, we just got the International Computer Innovation Award, Certificate, JPG. Lin Fan's eyes lit up. They had received an international award, which meant he had completed 1/3 of his mission as a new teacher. Mission: become a teacher, teach 5 students and let them receive 3 international awards. 1-3, reward 5 golden packets and a special skill. As expected, Lin Fan replied, well done. After Xia Bing and Xia Zhu sent the message, they held the phones tightly with both hands. They kept staring at them, not daring to think of anything else. Their heartbeats continued to accelerate. The next moment their phones vibrated slightly. The two of them had smiles more brilliant than blooming flowers. Lin Fan continued to stroll around. Not long after, his phone vibrated again. Hao Zhiwu, Professor Lin, I got the International Neurology Research Award, Certificate, JPG. Lin Fan replied, not bad. Hee, it's all thanks to you. It's not just because you taught me knowledge, but also because you're bold and careful. When I walked up to the podium, I was very nervous and afraid. However, when I thought about how you were very calm when you received the Nobel Prize, I wasn't afraid or nervous. Hao Zhiwu sent a long message. Luckily, Lin Fan had the scanning ability, so he could read everything in an instant. Lin Fan, all the best. Then Lin Fan put his phone into his pocket and thought to himself, now, as long as Jiang Keoquan's certificate is in hand, the mission will be completed. Xia Bing, Xia Zhu, and Hao Zhiwu all got their certificates today. Would Jiang Keoquan also get it today? If that was the case, he would be able to complete the mission today. However, things often went against one's wishes. Even at night, Lin Fan still had not received a message from Jiang Keoquan. The next day at 11 a.m. Suddenly, a crisp notification rang out in Lin Fan's mind. Ding, you've completed the mission, become a teacher, teach 5 students and let them receive 3 international awards. 3-3, you've received 5 golden packets and a special skill. The mission. It was done. Congratulations, you've obtained the skill Heartbeat. Heartbeat possesses the special ability to listen to the thoughts of the other party. The more you listen, the more charming you are. Seeing this, Lin Fan's eyes lit up. Hear the other party's thoughts. This was definitely a very good skill. It was really worth spending so much time as a professor to teach students. Not bad, not bad. On the other hand, Jiang Keoquan, who had just received his certificate, sent a message to Lin Fan immediately. However, even after waiting for a long time, Lin Fan did not reply. Maybe the professor is busy with other projects, Jiang Keoquan muttered. How could he know that Lin Fan was completely immersed in the joy of hearing other people's inner thoughts? After a while, Lin Fan finally stopped feeling happy about the new skill. He then turned his attention to the 5 golden packets and 1 platinum packet. The 5 golden packets were the rewards from this mission. The platinum packet was the reward from the controllable nuclear fusion plant. I'll open the golden packets first. Ding, congratulations, you've received 100,000 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received 900,000 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained a dimensional multiplication card. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained a 1 yuan critical hit card. Ding, congratulations, you've received 500,000 yuan. As for the 1.5 million yuan that he obtained, as well as the 1 yuan critical hit card, Lin Fan did not care about them. He immediately placed his attention on the dimensional multiplication card. Dimensional multiplication card, after use, the inner space will randomly increase by 1 to 10 times. Seeing this, Lin Fan's eyes lit up once more. He had personally experienced the magic of the inner space. It was a magical space that could allow objects to instantly enter his body with a slight thought. This space was only 10 square meters. Previously, Lin Fan had felt that there was simply too little space. Now there was finally a chance for growth. Use it. Ding, it was used successfully. Congratulations, your inner space has increased by 5 times. Your current inner space is 50 square meters. Lin Fan looked at the inner space that had expanded and revealed a satisfied look. First, he obtained the ability to listen to the thoughts of others. After that, he obtained the dimensional multiplication card. It seemed like today's luck was pretty good. Then Lin Fan's eyes landed on the last platinum packet with a look of incomparable anticipation. Opened. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained the skill Beginner Fasting Technique. Another skill. Beginner Fasting Technique. After using it, it can greatly reduce the energy consumption of the human body and extract energy from the natural world, so that your body will not be affected even if you do not eat or drink for a month. Seeing this, Lin Fan's lips curled up. Fasting, was this like the immortal cultivation talked about in legends? In the next moment, the smile on Lin Fan's face froze as he stood rooted to the spot. That was because another crisp notification sounded in his mind. Ding, a total of 1 million red packets have been opened, and a Doomsday mission has been unlocked. 566 Doomsday Countdown 1. Doomsday Mission, the universe is fair. Every world has its initial birth, development, and final destruction. However, after the Earth started suffering from the wanton destruction of mankind, the day of its final destruction was brought forward. However, the universe is willing to give you a chance to save Earth. After completing the mission, you'll receive a large amount of rewards. Doomsday Mission. Earth was going to be destroyed. Even though Lin Fan had a pretty good ability to accept things, he was stunned by this mission on the spot. He did not move for a long time. It was also at this moment. Everywhere in the world, whether it was a private bedroom, a large flat, a plane without signal, or a dark basement, an emotionless voice sounded. Countdown to the end of the world. Next, a void gate will randomly appear in the territories of 200 countries around the world. A certain number of human representatives from each country will be randomly selected to enter the other world. The live broadcast of the human representatives' activities in the otherworld will be shown at the various void gates. At the same time, the void gates will spew out a terrifying fog of destruction or a magical light of life based on the performance of the human representatives from various countries. Void gates appear. Choose your representatives. 3 days later, the representatives will enter the otherworld. Doomsday is here. The voice stopped. It was also at this moment that in the sky above the bustling city, in the empty fields, and in the desolate mountains, a huge black door appeared. In the middle of the black door, the starlight formed a huge countdown that read 71, 59, 59. When the voice appeared, many people thought that they had forgotten to turn the speakers off. However, when they saw the void gate, everyone's mouths and eyes were wide open. They were completely stunned. Some people hurriedly took out their phones to take a photo. Some screamed loudly. Others instantly cried. The chaos had officially begun. Weibo, Facebook, BBS, and the rest of the internet. The top 10 trending searches on all social media platforms had become the topic of Doomsday in just 5 minutes. Times have changed. Doomsday, is this true? Firmament, that void gate is too terrifying. Wanting Moon, countdown, in 72 hours Earth will be destroyed. Useless Scholar, what should we do now? I don't want to die yet. Ruthless Time, why is it suddenly Doomsday? Moon on the tree, hasn't the energy problem been solved? Guardian, please tell me that this is not true. This is a joke the country is playing on us, right? This must be some high-tech product invented by the country, a 3-dimensional projection, right? Professor Lin, yes, this must be the 3D projection technology invented by Professor Lin. Magic attack, Professor Lin, please step out and answer. Stone, all right, don't call out to Professor Lin anymore. Now the one who's suffering the most is probably him. It's better not to disturb him. Professor Lin has invented many high-tech products, so he's definitely a staunch atheist. In the end, such a situation occurred. Perhaps there really is a god in this world. This could be said to have shattered Professor Lin's worldview. Ordinary people far, this is indeed not a 3D projection technology. As far as I know, just as the voice said, void gates have appeared in all countries in the world. If it was a three-dimensional projection technology, how big would the projector be? This kind of projector would definitely be easily discovered. However, so far there's no news of the projector. In fact, there's no light source. The void gates are real. In addition, the voice from before sounded at the same time. This isn't something that a projector can do. In fact, it can't be done with any high-tech equipment. Half human, half beast, so we're done for. Is the apocalypse really coming? Mr. Zhang, didn't they say that each country will randomly select some representatives? As long as the representatives perform well, the world won't be destroyed. Disheartened, Nashland has just sent news that a football player has been selected as a representative. Uncle Wang, there's news from Japes that a streetcar driver will become a representative. Love you forever, say, an investigator from Eagle Country has become a representative. Heart like still water, so many countries' representatives have been announced. What about ours? Who's chosen from our country? Hoo, yeah, where's our country's representative? I heard that the representatives of the other countries have all been arranged for emergency training and equipment selection. Our country has to hurry up too. In fact, it was not just the netizens who were discussing and panicking. The higher-ups of Hua Nation were holding an emergency meeting. They had a heated discussion. How many void gates have appeared in our country? A total of 30. What do you think of this doomsday declaration? This is not an effect that can be produced by any currently known technology. That's because the void gates can be found all over the world. In the vast universe, there might really be some unknown entity. At this point, the atmosphere at the scene could not help but become gloomy. It felt like they had suddenly become weak ants. They were extremely helpless. 567 Doomsday Countdown 2. At this moment, the man sitting in the main seat said, "Have you asked Professor Lin?" Professor Lin's phone is unreachable. The man on the main seat seemed to have thought of something and said, "Then don't disturb Professor Lin now, he's very tired." Have we not announced our representative yet? Not at the moment. What are the characteristics of the people chosen from other countries? They all heard the voice in their minds. At the same time, a golden 72-hour countdown that only they can see appeared on their arms. It had to be said that Hua Nation's ability was not bad. Not long after all this happened, they had already investigated all this information. If that's the case, we can only wait for the chosen ones to take the initiative to report. Get all the major online platforms to increase the news. Reward the individuals and families of those who have taken the initiative to report that they've been selected. Make relevant promises. At the same time, get the local authorities to step up their publicity and search. In addition, chaos begets chaos in troubled times, the man said after a pause. Tell all the places to pay attention to maintaining order. Yes, sir. Just as the man had expected, there was chaos in troubled times. Some people could not suppress the fear in their hearts and committed crimes. Fortunately, Hua Nation stopped everything in time. Thus, order was quickly restored. However, it was not so easy for other countries. Snatching, smashing, burning, and killing were rampant. Thick smoke billowed and wails could be heard. There were still 3 days before the chosen ones entered the otherworld, but those countries were already showing signs of doomsday. At this moment, Qing City, 4th Street. Lin Xiaoyao slowly walked out and said in a daze, "Brother, I just heard doomsday." However, before she could finish her sentence, there was the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground and the honks of many cars. These sounds scared Lin Xiaoyao so much that she could not help but shrink back. Lin Fan hurriedly covered her ears and smiled. "Don't worry, the apocalypse won't come." Although it was just a very plain sentence, after Lin Xiaoyao heard it, she immediately felt that it was the truth. Doomsday, it would definitely not descend. Lin Xiaoyao nodded vigorously and said, "Yes." At this moment, hurried footsteps sounded from outside. It was Lin Tao and Dai Weixu. While they were working in the shop, they suddenly heard that emotionless voice. In the beginning, they did not pay much attention to it. However, the noise outside was incessant now. Then a huge void gate appeared in the air. Only then did they know that it was true. Thus, Lin Tao and Dai Weixu did not even close the shop door and returned home as quickly as possible. If the apocalypse was really coming, they would have to stay with their children. Lil Fan. Dad, Mom, you heard it too, right? Lin Fan smiled. Don't worry, the apocalypse won't come. Really? Dai Weixu asked hesitantly. Of course it's true, Mom. Have you forgotten I'm a big professor? Lin Fan smiled. That's true, my son is a great professor, Dai Weixu said. Lin Tao did not say anything, he just looked at Lin Fan silently. For the next 2 days, no matter how noisy the streets were or what people talked about, Lin Tao, Dai Weixu, Lin Fan, and Lin Xiaoyao's family acted as if they had not heard anything. They were no different from usual. They continued to eat, watch TV, and chat every day. It was very warm. On the internet, more and more representatives from different countries were announced, causing countless discussions. Some people even created a hero ranking. They called these chosen people heroes who were about to save the world. They created a comprehensive list based on their strength, influence, popularity, and so on. There were no Chinese people on this list. That was because Hua Nation still had not found anyone who had been chosen. On Weibo. Love, what's going on? Where are the chosen ones from our country? Feng Huo, chosen ones, come out quickly, don't be afraid. We'll definitely train you into the most outstanding people in the shortest time possible. 123, why aren't you coming out? 23, don't tell me there are no chosen people in our country. Who am I? We're done for. If this continues, we're done for. Jingbei conference room. A group of men in white shirts gathered together. The man sitting at the top asked, you still haven't found any chosen ones. The number of people who said they were chosen online was 51,229. The number of people who claimed to be chosen in reality was 39,881. However, after screening and checking, we found that none of them were chosen. How's the investigation going on in the mountain villages without internet and some places that are rarely visited? After all, the internet was filled with discussions about the apocalypse and heroes. It could be said that anyone who had some contact with the internet or had a smartphone would know that Hua Nation was looking for the chosen ones. However, none of the chosen ones had stepped up. Hence, they suspected that they were in a place without access to the internet. Someone answered nearly 10. 0 soldiers have been set up for the investigation. In the past 2 days, they've conducted emergency searches in many mountain villages without internet access and remote forests. However, so far we haven't found anything. What about the people who have passed away recently? The man above pondered. Obviously, he was worried that the chosen ones had gotten into some sort of accident. This was the worst outcome. However, it was also a possibility. We've investigated the people who were critically ill and died in the past 2 days. For the time being, we haven't found anything special. When the man above heard this, he could not help but frown. No. Still nothing. According to the current pattern, the bigger the country, the stronger the power, and the more people would be selected. Some large countries even had more than 10 people. Even the weakest country would have at least one person chosen. However, what was the situation in Hua Nation? Why hadn't any chosen ones appeared? The man in the white shirt slowly raised his head and looked at the void gate. 10059. There was only 1 hour left before the chosen ones had to enter the other world. The scorching sun seemed to have ignited the entire sky. It was restless and scorching. Jing City, 4th Street. The father and son were in the living room. Lin Tao lit a cigarette and said in a low voice, "You're going to leave soon." Lin Fan had not told his parents and sister that he was the only chosen one in Hua Nation. However, since father and son were of one mind, Lin Tao could still guess the result. Lin Fan looked at the timer on his wrist and said, "There's still an hour left." Lin Tao took a deep puff of his cigarette and said, "Be careful." "All right," Lin Fan said. At this moment, footsteps sounded from outside. Chen Yuxuan, Zia Bing, Zia Zhu, Hu Tian, Su Ningjing, Han Tian, Ling Ru, Qiu Ziqian, Huang Ling, Chen Xin, Su Jingru, and a large group of women appeared at the door. They're looking for you, aren't they? Lin Tao asked. Lin Fan nodded, yes. Go and say goodbye. Lin Tao took another puff of his cigarette and said. All right, Lin Fan replied and walked out slowly. Just as Lin Fan walked out of the door, Lin Xiaoyao and Dai Weixu walked out of the room. Dai Weixu threw herself into Lin Tao's arms, tears rolling down her cheeks. Lin Xiaoyao let out a hoarse voice from her throat, brother. Outside the door, Lin Fan's eyes swept across the women. None of them spoke, as if time had stopped. After some time, Qin Yuxuan took a few steps forward and hugged Lin Fan. After a while she reluctantly let go. Then Xia Bing and Xia Zhu went forward and hugged Lin Fan. Then it was Han Tian, Hu Tian and Su Ningjing. After they hugged each other, the countdown at the void gate became 000003. 3 seconds left. Therefore everyone shouted, Lin Fan will wait for you. Lin Fan wanted to say something. Swoosh. Time returned to 0. In the next moment, Lin Fan vanished from where he stood. At the same time, in the emergency training bases of other countries. When the countdown reached 0, all the chosen people disappeared into thin air. Perhaps some people were still a little confused about the Doomsday Declaration and the chosen ones. At this moment, they gradually began to believe it. It was also at this moment. A high-definition image suddenly appeared at the dark void gates. According to the people's observations, these images were a panoramic live broadcast of the chosen ones from various countries. This appearance once again sparked a global debate. Fang, look at the long grass. Why does this feel like the wilderness in the movies? Man of heaven, all heroes seem to have suddenly disappeared and then appeared in the wilderness. Xiaxio F***CK, I just saw a hero from Eagle Country in the live stream. He actually brought a sniper rifle there. Culinary god, what is this? There was a hero from Nashland who had a long sword, a Gatling gun, a sniper rifle, a pistol, and a grenade tied to his body. He had all kinds of weapons. Wind F***CK, that's awesome, where are our heroes? Silly laughter, by the way, where's Hua Nation's hero? Why aren't there any images from the Void Gate? Fallen Leaf, yeah, what about the live stream? Could it be that no one from Hua Nation was selected? Hua, what should we do then? Are we all going to die? Wind, I don't want to die yet. While everyone was discussing and feeling terrified, the live stream of Hua Nation's Void Gate finally began to shake. In the next moment, a patch of barren grassland that was half the height of a person appeared in everyone's sight. The scene changed slightly to a tall and handsome man. Seeing this, countless cameras were focused and synchronized to all the major online live broadcast rooms. Love, is this the hero of Hua Nation? He looks quite handsome. Flower, handsome, that's right, he's indeed very handsome. However, other than being handsome, does he have any other merits? All of us, even the entire country, was looking for him, wanting to give him the best training and the best weapons so that he could perform well in the otherworld and prevent the arrival of the apocalypse. But he never appeared. Family, look at his clothes. He definitely wasn't living in a mountain village without internet. 7 lotus seeds. Oh no, he seems to be the only hero in our country. Although he's handsome, this is the other world. He didn't receive any training and didn't bring any weapons. It's over. Our doomsday is coming. 123 Blockhead. Why didn't he take the initiative to say that he was chosen earlier? Red, this kind of person is the most selfish and cowardly. This time, the live broadcast was not only watched by ordinary people, but also by everyone in the Jingbei conference room. When the man sitting at the top saw the person in the live stream, his pupils constricted slightly. The people below were discussing in low voices. Fortunately, there's someone from China who was chosen. Yes, unfortunately, from the current situation, he's the only chosen one. Why didn't he tell us? I hope that this won't require a show of strength in the otherworld, sigh. When everyone said this, their faces could not help but reveal a hint of bitterness. Did not require a show of strength. In the unknown wilderness, were there no poisonous insects or ferocious beasts? What if their hero met people from other countries? Almost everyone had firearms in their hands. Wherever there were people, there would be fights. If the other party had some bad intentions, it would definitely be a very terrifying thing. I'll get someone to investigate the specific information of this hero, someone said. At this moment, the man who had been sitting on the main seat and had not spoken all this time said, "There's no need to investigate, he's Professor Lin Fan." Silence. The entire venue fell silent. The chosen one was Professor Lin Fan. Eh? On the other hand, Hua Nation's top TV station had already prepared a grand live broadcast venue for this incident. When the scene appeared at the Void Gate, the TV station also began a live broadcast on the internet. As the host of this live broadcast, Xiao Bing smiled and said, "3 days ago, everyone in the world heard the Doomsday Declaration at the same time. Because of this incident, many of us experienced panic, fear, and other emotions. However, for the time being, we still don't know if the apocalypse will really happen. However, even if the Doomsday Declaration is completely true, we don't have to be too afraid. Because there are still heroes protecting us. Now the hero of Hua Nation has appeared." Xiao Bing's voice was full of fighting spirit, as if it had the magical power to pull back the people who had fallen into the darkness. In the next moment, Xiao Bing's mouth was wide open as she cried out in surprise, how could it be him? Not long ago, Xiao Bing went to Sweden as a representative to broadcast the Nobel Prize Awards ceremony live. Even though the cameras did not capture Lin Fan's face, Xiao Bing had seen Lin Fan with her own eyes. Now Lin Fan had actually appeared in the live stream. In other words, Lin Fan was the chosen one. He was the great existence who won 4 Nobel Prizes. Any live stream of videos from the otherworld would attract the attention of many people. This TV station was an authoritative media outlet, and it was always the center of attention. In addition, Xiao Bing was currently the most famous host. This directly produced a qualitative change and attracted the attention of countless people. After the audience heard Xiao Bing's surprise, countless people sent out messages. Instantly, the entire live broadcast room was filled with dense bullet comments. Moonrise Willow Head, Xiao Bing, do you know this chosen person? Kyosho, who is he? Prince Xiao Bing, tell me quickly. Wan Xiao Bing, please speak quickly. Person in the wind, who is he? Emperor, who is he? 1, 2, 3, who is he? Lin Fan was completely oblivious to everyone's shock, discussion, and doubts. The moment he arrived in the otherworld, a crisp voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Ding, you've triggered mission rest for 6 hours. After entering the otherworld for the first time and resting for 6 hours, you can truly feel the air, temperature, and humidity of the otherworld. This is how you show respect for the environment. Reward, skill, gravity control. Gravity control. Even though Lin Fan could not see the exact use of this skill, just looking at this name made his eyes light up. After resting for 6 hours, he could obtain a skill, not bad. Lin Fan sat down on the ground without any hesitation. He looked at the blue sky, looked into the distance, and listened to the birds and bugs whispering to each other. He did not feel bored. He even felt a different kind of relief. After Lin Fan sat down to rest, Xiao Bing finally came back to her senses. She looked at the countless bullet comments asking about Lin Fan. She opened her mouth but did not dare to answer casually. She had received orders from her superiors to not interview or reveal Lin Fan's identity. At this moment, Xiao Bing's earpiece rang with the leader's dull voice. You can tell everyone Lin Fan's identity. The leaders all knew that Lin Fan did not like to be exposed in front of the cameras. Therefore, the leaders had been trying their best to facilitate this. However, Lin Fan's appearance had already been exposed. In fact, he would continue to appear in the live broadcast for a long time. Since that was the case, there was no problem with revealing Lin Fan's identity. In addition, after it was made public, it might even increase the confidence of the masses. This was a good thing for society. After Xiao Bing received authorization from the higher-ups, she stopped hesitating and said loudly, Hua Nation's hero is Professor Lin Fan. As soon as she said that, the entire live broadcast room instantly fell silent. A moment later, there was a barrage of comments. Irene F***CK. Ma Yizhang F asterisk CK. Midair wilderness F asterisk CK. Happiness F asterisk CK. Eh. It was no wonder that the audience would react as such. Lin Fan's name was too famous. He solved many unsolved math problems, invented the earthquake detection device, the human islet recovery drug, 2 types of super batteries, the carbon-based engraving machine, the gaming helmet, and other high-tech products. Not long ago, he won 4 Nobel Prizes at the same time. This made Lin Fan the greatest scholar in the world, the pride of all Hua people. Now everyone realized that Lin Fan was the only person from Hua Nation who had been chosen to enter the otherworld. How could they not be surprised and excited? Mada God Lin Fan is the chosen one, we're saved. Falling from the sky, that's right, God Lin Fan is omnipotent, he can definitely prevent us from heading toward the apocalypse. Love, 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 that's great. Eldest Princess, Lin Fan, good luck, I'll pray for you. Youth is gone? Haha, I know why Hua Nation only has one representative. That's because the person chosen is God Lin Fan. This trip to the otherworld will definitely be a competition of wisdom. Hua Nation will definitely win. Servant, the twists and turns, the twists and turns. As expected, after announcing Lin Fan's information, many people's moods improved. They were filled with hope for the future. However, this hope did not last long. It was because they saw Lin Fan sitting down in the same spot. Moreover, he sat there for several hours. 1 in 10,000, what's wrong with God Lin Fan? Song Ren, I don't know. Big Wind, Xiao Bing, tell me what happened to God Lin Fan. Chaos, is God Lin Fan feeling unwell? Dragon, is he thinking about something? Xiao Bing opened her mouth and found a lame reason after a while. Maybe Professor Lin is a little unaccustomed to the new world. After all, he suddenly went from Earth to another world. Winter Melon Skin, I see. Red Man, I hope that God Lin Fan can get well soon. Pray for him. Rich, pray for God Lin Fan. Song family, there's a blog post on God Lin Fan's actions. I'm copying it here for everyone to read. AI Jin, Lin Fan is the greatest scholar in the world. This is his strength, but at the same time it's also his weakness. Because all scholars are firm and confident. They believe that they can create and change everything. However, a god that they can't understand suddenly appeared one day. In fact, the god even brought them into another world. Thus, their confidence and their hearts instantly shattered like glass that had been hit hard. This can explain why Lin Fan didn't report himself after he became the chosen one. At the same time, it can also explain why Lin Fan is just sitting there without moving at all. He has completely given up. Unfortunately, there's only one person from Hua Nation who was chosen. Everyone, please cherish your last moments. Yellow Man, I think that his analysis seems to make sense. Easy Godlin Fan, please stand up. Farewell, Godlin Fan, don't be dispirited. The hope that had risen in everyone's hearts began to fall again after the blog post by AI Jin appeared. Sitting in front of the computer, AI Jin looked at the increasing number of visits and comments. His grin almost reached his ears. This was all money. Therefore, he was ready to strike while the iron was hot, and his hands kept jumping on the keyboard. Not long after, he posted another blog post. AI Jin, I didn't want to say too much because I already have a Nashland passport, so I'm no longer a citizen of Hua Nation. However, seeing that there are too many people who want me to continue speaking, I will say more. I want to tell you some practical problems. Actually, even if Lin Fan isn't dispirited, it won't be of much use. He's a great scholar and inventor on Earth. However, all this is because Earth has a very good infrastructure and he received the help of countless scholars. That's why he was able to succeed. Right now, Lin Fan is in a foreign world in the middle of the wilderness. There's no basic equipment there and no one to help him. His knowledge is useless. A ferocious beast or a venomous snake could take his life. Therefore, hot weapons are very important. But Lin Fan doesn't seem to have any. In addition, I have a piece of very bad news to tell everyone. Just now, Hendry of the Eagle Country encountered a scorpion that was as tall as a man and looked like a monster. Fortunately, Henry had grenades and machine guns which allowed him to kill the scorpion. He then received a mysterious reward. Light shot out from the Eagle Country's void gate, causing the seawater of the Eagle Country to fall. The country now has an additional large piece of land. In other words, there are not only ferocious beasts in the otherworld, but ferocious beasts that are much more terrifying than those on Earth. At the same time, it also shows that the performance of the heroes in the otherworld is based on martial strength. Under such circumstances, how could Lin Fan survive without firearms? How should he perform? After this blog post was published, the number of visitors to AI Jin's post skyrocketed again. Countless comments appeared like raindrops. At the same time, the number of AI Jin's followers also began to increase at a speed visible to the naked eye. He laughed his head off. Henry, who had a machine gun on his body and several grenades around his waist, kept moving forward in the wilderness. His face was filled with a relaxed expression. He did not panic at all. He would even introduce the place to the audience watching like a tour guide. Hello, everyone in front of the screen. This is the otherworld. There's a faint licorice smell in the air which is very sweet. Walking here, I can't help but think of the spring outing not long ago. My girlfriend and I had a great time in the wilderness. At this point, he seemed to think of his girlfriend, and his face was filled with longing. Then he sighed and said, "It's a pity that my girlfriend didn't become a hero. Otherwise, I think this trip to the otherworld would have been even more perfect." He knew that he was being broadcasted live. Firstly, this could relieve his boredom. Secondly, this was also a good opportunity to attract people. Popularity was money. After the trip to the otherworld ended, he might even be able to earn a lot of money from his popularity. While Henry was talking to himself, whoosh! The ground in front of them suddenly collapsed. In the next moment, a giant black scorpion that was even taller than him suddenly jumped out of the ground. Drops of crystal-clear liquid flowed out of the scorpion's black mouth. Seeing this, Henry was stunned. He had never seen such a huge black scorpion before. At this moment, the scorpion let out an ear-piercing cry. Then the scorpion raised its malevolent steel pincers and slashed at Henry. Henry hurriedly retreated. He narrowly dodged the steel pincers, and a pit appeared on the ground in front of him. Faintly, Henry could still feel the cold light coming from the steel pincers. Henry was terrified. He quickly picked up his machine gun and fired at the scorpion. Green liquid splattered everywhere, and miserable screams rang out. The scorpion kept flapping on the ground, trying to retreat. Henry seized the opportunity and threw out 2 grenades. Boom! Boom! Broken limbs flew everywhere. The entire world finally returned to silence. Although it had only been a few minutes from the giant black scorpion's appearance to its death, Henry felt like a century had passed. His entire body was covered in sweat. He sat limply on the ground and panted heavily. At this moment, he finally understood that the otherworld was not as easy as a spring outing. This place was filled with danger. At this moment, Henry heard an emotionless voice. "You're the first person to kill a level 1 giant black scorpion. You've obtained a level 1 treasure chest. You're the first person to kill a level 1 giant black scorpion. The Eagle Country's land area has increased by 10%. As soon as the voice ended, an ancient chest appeared beside the corpse of the giant black scorpion. Henry panted heavily again before looking at the chest with a doubtful gaze. After a moment of hesitation, he finally stepped forward and slowly opened it. The chest opened and a ray of light burst out. A ball of light appeared in front of him. Henry heard the emotionless voice again. 10 points of constitution, do you want to use them? Henry stammered, use them. The next moment the ball of light entered Henry's body. Henry felt his body squirm. Soon he looked at his hands in disbelief and cried out in surprise, "Unbelievable, this is too unbelievable." Audience, you might not believe it, but when that ball of light entered my body, all the fatigue in my body disappeared. At the same time, I feel that I have endless strength. My body is filled with power. As he spoke, he looked around, as if he was looking for something to prove himself. Soon his gaze fell on a rock the length of an arm not far away. He He moved it with force and the rock flew up. Then Hendry threw the stone to the side and jumped up from the ground. He was actually jumped 2 meters away from the ground. Eagle Country's live broadcast room. Voss, he jumped 2 meters on the spot. Oh my god, this is simply Superman. What if Hendry returns to Earth and plays in the NBA in the future? He'll be the new basketball god. Nilton, why wasn't I chosen? I want to be Superman too. Moss, oh god, just now a golden light suddenly shot out from the void gate, causing the seawater to drop significantly. Then, at a speed visible to the naked eye, lush green grass and trees grew. It's simply a miracle. Make the seawater receded, and our land area directly increased by 10%. Duck, it's true, everything is true. Hendry is the true hero of our Eagle Country. On the other hand, Hua Nation's live broadcast was very stable and quiet, as if it was still. Lin Fan was still sitting on the spot, not moving at all. The bullet comments in the live broadcast room were like a heavy downpour, covering the entire live broadcast room. Man in the wind, did any of you go to the internet and watch the video of Hendry killing the giant black scorpion? It was simply too shocking. Model, yeah, furthermore, Hendry obtained 10 constitution points and became Superman. In addition, Eagle Country has increased its territory by 10%. 321 Wooden Man, Eagle Country might not be affected by this apocalyptic event. On the contrary, it might even grow substantially. Red, I'm so envious. Moon decease, Professor Lin, quickly stand up and go fight the monsters. Autumn falling leaves, stop shouting. Professor Lin might really have given up on himself like what AI Jin said. Sigh, why is Hua Nation so unlucky? Sister in the sky, in the past I thought that Hua Nation was lucky to have Professor Lin who gave us a chance to stand at the top of the world. Now I realized that I was wrong, very wrong. Professor Lin succeeded greatly and is now failing greatly. Rumble, can't we let Professor Lin see what we're saying? We have to make Professor Lin work hard to fight monsters. In fact, it was not just the netizens who were extremely anxious. The people in the meeting room in Jingbei were the same. This is really bad. Professor Lin seems to have suffered a huge blow. Eagle Country has already verified the authenticity of the Doomsday Declaration. Moreover, the performance of the heroes is calculated based on their strength. What should we do? Sigh. At this moment, the man sitting at the top said, I believe in Professor Lin. Everyone's figures turned solemn as they nodded vigorously. Then they focused on the live broadcast again. Some were worried, some were terrified. However, there was also a group of people who were happy when they saw the live broadcast. Xia Bing, Xia Zhu, Hu Tian, Han Tian, Qin Yuxuan and the others just needed to quietly look at Lin Fan and see that he was safe and sound. No matter how the people on Earth talked about it and the kind of thoughts there were in their hearts, Lin Fan sat on the ground the entire time. He sniffed the fresh air and felt the cool breeze blowing against his face. He was extremely satisfied. 6 hours passed in a flash. At this moment, a crisp notification rang out in Lin Fan's mind. Ding! Mission completed. Rest for 6 hours. After entering the otherworld for the first time and resting for 6 hours, you can truly feel the air, temperature, and humidity of the otherworld. You've shown respect for the environment. You've acquired the skill gravity control. Then Lin Fan focused his attention on gravity control. Gravity control, able to control 1,000 times the gravity. Seeing this, Lin Fan's eyes lit up. It could control 1,000 times the gravity. This was definitely a very good ability. At this moment, he felt that as long as he had a thought, he could easily change the gravity around him. It was just like his own hands and feet. It was very strange. He quietly doubled the gravity around him. Instantly, the grass beside him bent down. This was simply like the power of a god. Lin Fan's lips curled up. He turned around and picked a direction and walked forward. In Hua Nation's live broadcast room. Professor Lin is up? Xiao Bing smiled sweetly. I think he has already acclimatized to the environment. Next, he'll definitely be able to create miracles in the otherworld, just like how he invented the earthquake prediction device, the super battery, and the carbon-based photolithographic machine. At the same time, the bullet comments in the live broadcast room kept rolling. The luxury car is a little hot, he's finally up. Phone, I hope it's as Xiao Bing said, that a miracle can be created. Little cold hands, you can do it, Professor Lin. 1 in 10,000, Professor Lin, you can do it. Stranger, oh my god, it's too terrifying. Have you seen the video of the Japes hero Akihiro Higashida? Red and swollen, I've seen it. The otherworld is so scary. Akihiro Higashida was a famous swordsman in Japes. After he learned that he had been chosen to enter the otherworld, he chose to report to the country like everyone else. However, unlike most people, he did not need to learn emergency combat techniques. He was the king of combat. After receiving some firearms guidance, he only brought his longsword and a pistol into the otherworld. In the live broadcast room in Japes, Yaishin, with Akihiro Higashida from Japes entering the otherworld, we will definitely obtain countless benefits. Masanizu-kun, that's right, Akihiro Higashida is an extremely powerful kendo expert. He's practically invincible in this foreign world. Huang, Mr. Akihiro Higashida, you're the best. Akihiro Higashida continued to move forward in the wilderness. At this moment, a 2-meter-tall patterned leopard suddenly appeared in the distance. The patterned panther leaped forward, revealing its ferocious steel claws as it clawed at Akihiro Higashida. Seeing this, Akihiro Higashida's pupils constricted. He quickly drew his sword to block the attack. However, there was no effect at all. When the steel claw landed on the longsword, it was as if it had landed on tofu. The longsword instantly broke. The strength of the steel claw did not slow down at all as it continued to land on Akihiro Higashida's body. In an instant, Akihiro Higashida's head exploded like a watermelon. Red and white sprayed out. His upper body and lower body fell to the ground as if they were tattered. His intestines and internal organs flowed out continuously. Lord Tianmu, ouch. Sakura, so scary. Our encounter at the train station, Akihiro Higashida died a tragic death. Tanaka-taro, so bloody, so scary. At this moment in the live broadcast room, in fact, an emotionless voice sounded in the ears of everyone in Japes. The chosen one, Akihiro Higashida, has died. The lifespan of the people in the country has been reduced by 1 year. Suddenly, a black mist shot out from the void gates in Japes. Then, in the hospital, the heart of a seriously ill patient who had just had a successful operation suddenly stopped beating. An old man suddenly fell to the ground and could not get up. A heart patient suddenly clutched his chest in extreme pain. The entire Japes live broadcast room was filled with wails. In Hua Nation's live broadcast room, Black Yellow, Akihiro Higashida died too tragically. 123 Wooden Man, it's over, I'm going to be depressed for a few days. Mushroom Chicken Stew, Akihiro Higashida is dead. The lifespan of everyone in Japes has been reduced by 1 year. All of a sudden, many people in Japes died. This has a huge impact. Moto, other countries have more heroes, there's still a chance for them. What if something happens to Professor Lin in the otherworld? He's the only hero in Hua Nation. Kinshin, Professor Lin, please don't walk around anymore. Please stay there and rest for a while, I beg you. World Hero, Professor Lin, please rest for a while. True Person, Professor Lin, please take a break. The bullet comments in the live broadcast room changed from urging Lin Fan to hurry up to urging him to stop and rest. It had only been 2 hours. It was very strange. Xia Bing, Xia Zhu, Hu Tian, Qin Yuxuan and the others kept their eyes on the live broadcast. Their eyes were filled with worry as they whispered prayers. Regarding these, Lin Fan did not know that he was having an easy time. He was still moving forward in the wilderness. The sound came from afar. In the next moment, a patterned leopard jumped out. This scene immediately attracted the attention of everyone in Hua Nation's live broadcast room. What a big, scary leopard, Professor Lin, be careful, Xiao Bing shouted in fear. The bullet comments were like a storm that instantly filled the entire live broadcast room. Hong Shan F***CK, it's the leopard that brutally killed Akihiro Higashida. Forget Professor Lin, run. Crow, it's over. Man in the sky, Professor Lin, be careful of its claws. Eh? Lin Fan stood rooted to the ground, as though he was frightened by the huge patterned panther. The people in the livestream watched as the patterned panther was about to use its ferocious claws to tear Lin Fan into pieces, just like how it did to Akiro Higashida. In the next moment, the patterned leopard suddenly felt a huge mountain crushing down on it. It fell straight to the ground and smashed a huge hole in the ground. Gravity control activated, 1,000 times the gravity. Rocks flew everywhere and dust filled the air. Lin Fan was still standing there, not moving. However, an emotionless voice sounded in his ears. You're the first to kill a level 2 arrow leopard. You've obtained a level 2 treasure chest. You're the first to kill a level 2 arrow leopard. The lifespan of the Hua people has increased by 2 years. The dust slowly dispersed, revealing a bottomless pit and an ancient chest. In the pitch-black hole, the figure of the arrow leopard could no longer be seen clearly. Of course, it was just that the audience could not see it in the live broadcast room. Lin Fan had night vision, so he could easily see the situation in the hole. At this moment, the arrow leopard had already turned into a meat patty, dead beyond belief. Lin Fan nodded to himself. Obviously, he was very satisfied with gravity control. Then Lin Fan placed his attention on the chest and opened the lid. You've received 20 points of Constitution. Do you want to use them? At the same time, a crisp notification rang out in Lin Fan's mind. Ding! Congratulations, you've received a special red packet of 200 Constitution points. When Lin Fan heard that, he did not touch the light orb in the box immediately. Instead, he chose to open the red packet. Instantly, Lin Fan's muscles and bones all twisted. A surging power surged up like a tide. He roughly calculated that this was equivalent to 10 bottles of Constitution potion. Then he looked at the 20 points of Constitution on the ground and casually accepted them. After all, no matter how small the pie was, it was still pie. Lin Fan did not stay on the spot and continued walking forward. As he walked forward, he casually patted a tree that was as thick as his thigh. The tree fell. This was the power of 200 points of Constitution. In Hua Nation's live broadcast room, the entire screen fell silent. After a while, countless bullet comments started to roll. Just love you, does anyone know what just happened? Autumn Leaf, I don't know. I just saw that the leopard was about to hit Professor Lin, so I closed my eyes and didn't dare to look. Why did the leopard die in the blink of an eye? Dusk, I just saw that there was suddenly a big pit in front of Professor Lin. When the leopard came over, it probably fell into it and died. Wind fell to its death, hahaha, Professor Lin is really lucky. Zhang Shengli, I was almost scared to death just now. It's all right now. Oh right, Professor Lin had just obtained 20 Constitution points. Heaven and Earth number 1, 20 Constitution points. Henry of Eagle Country only obtained 10 points of Constitution and he could almost be said to be Superman. Then, wouldn't Professor Lin become an existence that far surpasses Superman? Mowen, that's great, we're saved. Bracelet, Professor Lin killed the Arrow Panther and obtained 20 Constitution. In addition, he has also increased the lifespan of all of us in Hua Nation by 2 years. I just noticed that a golden light seemed to have shot out from the void gates. Do you guys feel anything special? The wind is blowing, I feel like my body is a little warm. Soul Eater, I thought it was an illusion, I feel a little warm too. Morning Jog Enthusiast, oh my god, my grandfather was given a notice of critical illness in the morning, but he was suddenly able to walk normally just now and all the data on his body is normal. Sweet love you, all of our lifespans have been increased by 2 years. Send you away, I can live another 2 years, thank you Professor Lin. Hyunghun, thank you Professor Lin. Song, thank you Professor Lin. Zio Bing held the microphone and shouted excitedly, Professor Lin has killed a level 2 arrow leopard and obtained 20 Constitution points. He has also increased our lifespan by 2 years, let's give Professor Lin a round of applause. After saying that, she started to clap her hands. In the conference room in Jingbei, everyone in white shirts stared at the live broadcast room. Even though they had all seen countless big scenes and had the ability to remain calm even if Mount Everest were to collapse in front of them. When they saw an arrow leopard suddenly charging out and pouncing toward Lin Fan, they could not help but break out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, there was a pit in front of Professor Lin. Yeah, otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. God bless Professor Lin. This can be considered a blessing in disguise. I believe that everyone will have more confidence in Professor Lin and his future. Eh? As everyone spoke, their faces looked as if they had just survived a disaster. The man sitting at the top also heaved a sigh of relief. Eh? Xia Bing, Xia Zhu, Qin Yuxuan, Hu Tian and the others were watching the live stream. When they saw the arrow leopard pouncing toward Lin Fan, their hearts jumped up to their throats. They were extremely frightened. When they saw the arrow leopard fall into the hole, they heaved a sigh of relief. It was all right, Lin Fan was fine. In their hearts they did not care if their lifespan had increased. As long as Lin Fan was safe, nothing else mattered. AI Jin was also watching the live broadcast. When he saw that Lin Fan had obtained 20 points of constitution, a look of hatred flashed across his face. If Lin Fan died, how good would that be? His eyes darted around, and his hands began to move rapidly on the keyboard again. AI Jin, first of all, congratulations to Professor Lin for killing a level 2 arrow leopard and successfully obtaining 20 constitution points. However, what I want to say is that Professor Lin shouldn't let his guard down. After all, he could encounter a deep pit by luck once, but not a second time. We just saw the monsters from the otherworld, they're extremely terrifying. A level 1 giant black scorpion could only be killed with a grenade. A level 2 arrow leopard could easily break a longsword. These are not existences that humans can resist with their bare hands. Even if he has the ability to jump 2 meters or even 4 meters, it's useless. AI Jin's blog post seemed to have poured a bucket of cold water on everyone who had just had a glimmer of hope. Many people were filled with sorrow and joined the discussion. Soon, the number of visitors increased again. Lin Fan did not care about any of this at all. He walked aimlessly forward. At this moment, another sound came from not far away. Then a tiger with half-meter-long teeth and a height of about 2 meters slowly poked its head out. It let out a dull roar as it stared at Lin Fan with its cold eyes. However, Lin Fan did not seem to have seen it at all. He was extremely calm. The giant tiger seemed to feel provoked. In the next moment, it opened its bloody mouth and pounced toward Lin Fan. Seeing this, everyone watching the livestream felt their hearts tighten. However, soon they were all stunned. When the tiger reached Lin Fan, it fell into a deep pit just like the arrow leopard and never got up again. Gravity control activated, 1,000 times the gravity. 573 kill again, eating broadcast. The giant tiger fell into the pit, stirring up another cloud of dust. An emotionless voice sounded at the scene. You're the first person to kill a level 2 megalodon tiger. You've obtained a level 2 treasure chest. You're the first person to kill a level 2 megalodon tiger. The air quality in Hua Nation has improved by 50%. Then an ancient chest appeared in front of Lin Fan. He chose to open it. You've obtained 20 points of constitution. Do you want to use them? At the same time, a crisp notification sounded out in Lin Fan's mind. Ding, congratulations, you've received a special red packet of 200 constitution points. Instantly, Lin Fan's muscles and bones started to squirm once more. That feeling of being filled with power kept rippling in his heart. Previously, he could easily break a tree as thick as a thigh with a casual slap. Now what kind of power did he possess? Lin Fan's lips curled up slightly as he placed his hand on the orb of light in the chest. He received 20 constitution points. In Hua Nation's live broadcast room, Lotus Eye was scared to death. This tiger that suddenly appeared is too scary. Feng family, fortunately there was another deep pit in front of Professor Lin. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have known what to do. Bullhead, I just read AI Jin's blog post and he said that Professor Lin wouldn't encounter another deep pit. What happened? Is it a slap in the face? Farewell, there's actually someone talking about AI Jin here. Poor but not poor, Professor Lin has obtained another 20 constitution points. It'll be safer for him now. One heart to her, another ray of light shot out from the void gates just now. The sky immediately turned a lot bluer. Song, it's not just the sky turning blue, the air is also fresher. Learn to refuse, Professor Lin is amazing. Peace, God bless Professor Lin. Xiao Bing shouted into the microphone, look, Professor Lin has killed another level 2 monster and his constitution has increased by another 20 points. At the same time, the air quality of our country has improved by 50%. Professor Lin, thank you. After saying that, she even bowed deeply toward Lin Fan with utmost sincerity. AI Jin did not expect that shortly after posting his blog post, Lin Fan would encounter another level 2 monster. This level 2 monster even fell into the pit and died like the arrow leopard. He had said on his blog that Lin Fan would not be so lucky to meet another trap. In the end, he was slapped in the face in the blink of an eye. AI Jin looked at the comments, which were all mocking him, and his face turned red. At the same time, he hated Lin Fan even more. Why was Lin Fan always so lucky? The sky gradually darkened. Not far away, a long-eared rabbit that was half the height of a human was eating wild grass in front of him. Lin Fan had the skill of fasting. Even if he did not eat or drink for a month, there would not be any problem. However, when he saw the long-eared rabbit's plump appearance, he could not help but swallow his saliva and slowly walk toward the long-eared rabbit. Even when Lin Fan grabbed the long-eared rabbit's ear, it did not react. In fact, how could the long-eared rabbit not react? It was simply unable to react. The long-eared rabbit felt as if a huge mountain had suddenly appeared on its body, and it no longer had the strength to move its fingers. Skill gravity control. Then with a thought, a sharp knife appeared in Lin Fan's hand. Lin Fan's wrist shook. A bloody mark appeared on the long-eared rabbit's neck. Soon the long-eared rabbit's skin was completely peeled off. Then Lin Fan chopped a tree trunk as thick as an arm and skewered the entire rabbit. At the same time, he also found a pile of firewood. Next, Lin Fan willed it once more. Honey, salt, 13 spices, spicy noodles, and other condiments all appeared in front of him from the inner space. 3 days before entering the otherworld, Lin Fan was busy accompanying his family. At the same time, he was not completely idle. Lin Fan bought a large amount of daily necessities and filled up the 50 square meters of inner space. He could even take out an iron pot, let alone condiments and knives. As the flames rose, Lin Fan twirled the rod and smeared the seasonings on the long-eared rabbit's body. Not long after, golden oil dripped down from the long-eared rabbit's body. The delicious rabbit meat began to turn crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, making it very tempting. When the aroma wafted out, Lin Fan finally tore off a large rabbit leg and put it into his mouth. It was very delicious. In Hua Nation's live broadcast room, Xiao Bing looked at the rabbit meat in Lin Fan's hands and could not help but swallow. She could not help but say, "It looks so good." At the same time, there were so many bullet comments. Naive, how could he eat a rabbit? It's so cute, please add more comment. Big Ming is here, I clearly had a full dinner. Why am I suddenly hungry again? Hello, I just saw Nashlands Harrison eating leaves on the internet. In the end, he's eating barbecue here. Everyone went to the otherworld, so why is Professor Lin so different? 9 heavens, wait, is this a live stream from the otherworld? Did I go to the wrong place and come to an eating broadcast room? Optimus Prime, Professor Lin's cooking is pretty good. This rabbit looks delicious. Eastern Dragon, pretty good. I was watching Professor Lin's actions of killing, peeling, and slicing the rabbit very carefully. Everything was done smoothly. He easily disposed of the innards cleanly. In addition, Professor Lin was also very particular about the seasoning and barbecue. To be like Professor Lin, it'd be difficult to achieve without 3 to 5 years of hard work. I forgot to mention that I'm the head chef of a 4-star hotel. Flowers bloom. Professor Lin is not only a mathematician but also a great inventor. Furthermore, he's a chef. Awesome. On Songhua River, I see you guys are discussing food, but did you guys notice from where Professor Lin took out honey, salt, cumin, and other seasonings? Red, I don't think I noticed it either. Leo, this is bad. There seems to be movement in front. Could it be that another monster is here? After this message appeared, the live broadcast room fell into a short silence. All the viewers stared at the live broadcast screen, feeling very nervous. They prayed silently that it was not a ferocious beast. That was because everyone saw that Lin Fan had already walked around the entire area. There was no deep pit at all. If another ferocious beast appeared, it would definitely be very terrifying. The sound was getting closer and closer. Everyone in front of the screen held their breaths and became even more nervous. As for Lin Fan, who was in the other world, he seemed to be completely oblivious to this. He continued to eat the rabbit meat in a carefree manner. 574 Li Xianhao Dai. Li Xianhao was a middle-level manager of two-star financial group. However, he was different from most people. A golden countdown appeared on his arm. That was right. Li Xianhao was the chosen one. During the 3 days, many big shots that Li Xianhao looked up to shook hands with him, chatted with him, and promised him countless benefits. Li Xianhao knew that as long as he seized this opportunity in the other world, he would definitely be able to soar to greater heights. Hence, Li Xianhao kept working very hard to receive all kinds of training. 3 days passed in a flash. Today, when time returned to zero, Li Xianhao brought all kinds of weapons and arrived in the other world under the watchful eyes of many celebrities and people in the country. At first he was extremely excited. That was because he had arrived in the other world. Then the promises that were made to him earlier would become reality. The weapons on his body gave him enough confidence and a sense of security. However, after walking for a day in the wilderness of the other world, Li Xianhao had completely lost his confidence. He did not stay in the wilderness for long before he encountered a grizzly bear that was nearly 3 meters tall. When he saw the grizzly bear, Li Xianhao was scared silly. It was too terrifying. He hurriedly raised the machine gun at his waist and fired wildly at the grizzly bear. The bullets that could penetrate the wall hit the grizzly bear, but they did not cause much damage. In fact, they had only penetrated a little of the skin. However, this completely infuriated the grizzly bear. It opened its bloody mouth and roared at the sky. It raised its sharp claws that were like steel knives and swung them at Li Xianhao. Li Xianhao was terrified and hurriedly dodged to the side. However, the big backpack behind him exploded when the steel claw touched it. The food, water, grenades, and machine guns were all scattered on the ground. These were all life-saving things. However, Li Xianhao did not dare to pick them up. He scrambled forward. He felt the whistling sound behind him and quickly took out the grenade at his waist before pulling out the fuse. Then he threw it behind him. There was a loud bang and dust filled the sky. One grenade exploded very quickly, and the other grenades on the ground were also detonated very quickly. A series of explosions reverberated in the wilderness. The continuous explosions finally caused some damage to the grizzly bear, blocking its path. Li Xianhao seized the opportunity to run faster. After an unknown period of time and confirming that the grizzly bear was no longer behind him, he panted heavily and stopped, his face covered in dust. He had lost his backpack, food, water, and most of his weapons. He had met a terrifying grizzly bear. This made Li Xianhao extremely nervous about his trip to the other world. He tried to shoot birds. Unfortunately, he had only received 3 days of training, so his shooting skills were extremely poor. He could not hit the target at all. He tried to find some fruits to eat, but he did not find anything. For the entire day, he did not drink a single drop of water. His stomach rumbled with hunger and his entire person became more and more miserable. When night gradually descended, Li Xianhao suddenly smelled the smell of barbecued meat, which immediately made him excited. Hence he followed the scent and continued forward. Not long after, Li Xianhao saw a fire and a tall, handsome Asian man. It was Lin Fan. Li Xianhao hesitated for a moment but still walked forward. He spoke carefully in English. "Hello, may I ask which country you're from?" Lin Fan raised his eyes and spoke in his native language, Hua Nation. When Li Xianhao heard Lin Fan's reply, he was extremely happy. He had been stationed in Hua Nation for a period of time. He knew some simple words. In this way, there would not be too many problems in their communication. Li Xianhao said, I'm Li Xianhao from Korea. Nice to meet you, please may I know your name? Lin Fan's eyes turned cold. He had never had a good impression of Koreans. Lin Fan. Hello, Mr. Lin, we're all heroes chosen by Earth. You have a lot of meat here, Li Xianhao asked. As he spoke, he could not help but swallow. After all, they were all Earthlings, and Li Xianhao's attitude was not bad. Hence, Lin Fan tore off a piece of meat and handed it over. Li Xianhao took the meat and said excitedly, "Thank you." After saying that, he stuffed the meat into his mouth. The rabbit meat entered his stomach, and his mouth was filled with fragrance. Li Xianhao's mental state immediately improved. Then his gaze landed on the huge and juicy rabbit meat, hoping that Lin Fan would give him some more. However, Lin Fan did not have such thoughts or actions. Li Xianhao could not help but frown slightly, and he gradually became unhappy. Some people were like this. After others gave them some benefits and suddenly stopped giving them, they would feel resentment. Li Xianhao's gaze lingered on the rabbit meat for a while before turning to Lin Fan. He realized that Lin Fan did not have a big backpack beside him. He only had a small knife but no firearms. This made Li Xianhao's mind start to work. This Hua guy called Lin Fan doesn't seem to have placed his weapon beside him. If I use a gun, it seems that I can make him give me this big fat rabbit and even all his things. In this way, I won't have to worry about food for many days, and my safety will be more guaranteed. As the chosen one, Li Xianhao did not take the time to pay attention to whether the Hua people had taken the initiative to report their identities. In his opinion, all the selected people would definitely undergo similar training to him. As his thoughts spun, Li Xianhao could not help but gulp again. He could almost see himself holding this fat rabbit and gnawing on it. However, Li Xianhao did not know that his thoughts were completely exposed to Lin Fan. That was because Lin Fan had the skill, heart listening, which allowed him to easily hear the thoughts of others. Li Xianhao slowly bent his arm, ready to reach for the pistol hidden at his waist. At this moment, Lin Fan, who was eating rabbit meat, suddenly turned around and slapped Li Xianhao. A terrifying power exploded. In an instant, Li Xianhao was sent flying backward as if he had been hit by a speeding train. He crashed into a tree a dozen meters away. Blood and flesh flew everywhere. It was extremely miserable. The entire wilderness suddenly fell into dead silence.